Oh, that's hot. Oh.
Kids, when did you realise your parents might be terminally stupid? Hey guys, it's Dash, and welcome back to another AskReddit reading video. I asked my mum for Super Mario All-Stars on the Super Nintendo for my 8th birthday. She has no idea what I was talking about, so I explained what the game was. For those who may not know, it had all the original NES Mario games, Super Mario World, and one other Mario game that I think was previously unreleased. The SNES was still new, so games were expensive, but that was literally all I had asked for, so I was fairly confident. A couple of weeks went by and I didn't really think much about it. On my birthday, I came home from school to a big wrapped box, much bigger than the game. I tore into it and opened up the box to find an old Nintendo. Next to it were cartridges for the first 3 Mario games. I was so confused. Mum, it's exactly what you wanted. Me. It is? Mum, yes, I took your Super Nintendo to the swap meet and traded it in for the games that you wanted. It's been over 20 years and she hasn't got any better. Finally, a story I can tell. Every Friday my mother goes grocery shopping. It's a block away and she usually drives there. On this particular day, after she finished shopping, she decides to walk back. The next morning, she wakes me and my father up to let us know her car was stolen. The cops come, we fill out paperwork, and in the meanwhile she gets a rental car. That's not even the best part. The following Friday, she drives again to the grocery market and parks right next to her stolen car, which is a champagne-coloured Mitsubishi Diamante, not such a common car or colour. She comments how similar the car looks like hers, but makes nothing of it. A few days later, the cops call us to let us know the car is in the grocery store's parking lot 1 block away. Yeah, I got plenty of other stories, so that's probably the best one. When I was in 4th grade, my mother insisted helping with my homework for some reason. I was always a smart kid. I never needed help, but she forced me to let her help. She proceeded to redo my math and spelling homework, and I failed both assignments. I told her those answers were wrong, and she fought me on it. When I got to school, I cried and told the teacher my mum made me put the wrong answers, and I told her I knew the right ones, but my mum forced me to let her help. The teacher laughed, took my paper and asked me the questions. After I got 2 right immediately, she marked everything on the page wrong and gave it back to me. She told me not to worry and she put 100% in the gradebook. She just wanted me to show that one to my mum. Not my parents, but one of my dad's cousins was talking to us about how her daughter and her son-in-law were having a baby, but that she was worried about it because the son-in-law is deaf and she was concerned their child would be deaf too. The conversation continued, and she then disclosed that the son-in-law is deaf because of a head injury from a bad car accident he was in when he was a teenager. My dad, who is a doctor, kept trying to reassure her that this was not possible, but she basically thought that you pass on to your kids whatever physical attributes your body has at the time you conceived them, regardless of how your body got that way. My mum broke into my dad's house with a gun, pooped her pants while in the house, and left the pants on the stairs. Why the... I was not expecting that. My dad is anti-vax and a flat earther. He thinks he's very smart, good example of the Dunning-Kruger effect. He's also very stubborn. He got into an argument with my brother and I about whether it was possible for us to travel faster than the speed of light and other physics stuff. His reasoning was, they did it in Star Trek, it can happen in real life. Oh my god. Dude, they went back in time in Doctor Who, obviously you can time travel. My dad crashed his car at 8 AM on his way to work because he was surprised at a naked woman streaking across the road. When the police turned up and asked what happened, he explained that he ended up crashing as he wasn't sure if he really just saw a naked woman or if he was still drunk from the night before. And that is how he lost his driver's license, because oddly enough, there was a naked woman and he was still drunk. What a legend. Sir, what happened? I crashed because I saw a woman, or if I'm just still drunk. Sir, come with me, please. My stepdad sees one of those tearjerker commercials about starving children in Africa. Proceeds to rant about how there's plenty of animals to hunt in Africa, and why don't they just eat? Literally shouting at the TV. Eat! Just eat! In high school, grades were posted online. Dad wanted to check how poorly I was doing. I told him the internet is closed because it was after 5 PM. My dad doesn't believe in carbon monoxide poisoning. My mum can't use a decimal point on a calculator. When my mum said she just couldn't figure out why my aunt didn't like her after my mum borrowed $100 from her to buy us food and spent it on cigarettes and beer, stole another $20 from her to buy a DVD, and then hit my dad in the face with a frying pan. If your 6-year-old can figure out why and you can't, then maybe you're incurable stupid. Years ago, I was building a potato cannon which my father was uninterested in, thinking it was just stupid. until he saw me working on it in the garage. I have the cannon in the vise and had just put in an electrical barbecue igniter and wired it to some bolts inside to get a good spark. Suddenly he's very interested. I had just managed to get a perfect gap with a strong arc and he says, "Wait, let go of the button for a second," and sprays quick start, basically aerosol ether, and goes, "Okay, hit it now." Nothing happened. Both ends of the cannon are open, so it's just a tube, and the quick start he sprayed just dissipated too quick. "Okay, hold the button for a sec." I'm not even thinking about what he's about to do at this moment, and he aims the spray right at the live arc and creates a fireball that came straight for his face, singeing his one eyebrow and the corner of his moustache. I can't imagine what he thought was going to happen. When they gave my college fund to a preacher so he could send Bibles to Nicaragua. That's a rough one, Chief. My parents got hit by the second Microsoft tech support scam this week. My dad insists MLMs are worthy investments and genuinely believes the whole family has ESP. When she was fully convinced that the country of Mexico was made the 51st state of the USA in the 60s. No, she was not confusing New Mexico and Mexico. When faced with reality, she said that it was a widely taught fact when she went to school in the 70s. My mum asked whether World War I or World War II came first. They questioned vaccines and discouraged me from going to college. I'm terminally stupid for listening to them about the college part. Never too late, right? Ugh. My parents made me take piano lessons since I was 9. When I told them I wanted to be a professional pianist, they were ashamed. What? Pays for piano lessons. Wants to be a pianist. My mum got mad at me for getting a flu shot because the government uses them to track and poison people. I was 30 at the time. My parents are well educated, but this was one of the stupidest things I've seen them do. I was in the basement playing video games and went upstairs to my parents frantically looking for me. They were in that anger relief kind of state and told me they'd been looking for me for hours and were about to call the cops. Here's the thing, I had my phone on me the entire time and had received no calls, text or messages from either of them. Also, none of them ever went down to the basement to check if I was there, otherwise they would have seen me. I couldn't have really left the house either, because I wasn't old enough to drive at the time. I don't know what was going through their minds, but it definitely was not common sense. I would have loved to see the police officer's face if they found me in the basement after they called the cops. My mum wanted to drive to the new Google office building to complain about her Yahoo email account. I barely managed to convince her that they are different companies. When my father wouldn't allow us to get internet because they didn't need it when he was a kid. I have school. You dropped out in the 10th grade. Directing his dad on Reddit. My mum got a large inheritance and used it to remodel her house that she hadn't paid off, then took a line of credit out on it months after the housing crash. This is the single stupidest thing I've ever seen someone to do with so much planning involved. It took months for this dumb plan to happen, and I tried to dissuade her every step of the way. It's one thing to put a fork in an electrical socket, and a totally different thing to hire a carpenter to build a house, hire an electrician to wire it, go to Target to buy a fork, and then put it in the socket. Dad introduces me to someone I've never met. Dad, do you recognize this person? Me, 24 years old, no. Dad, but she held you when you were a baby. My mother is a living embodiment of the phrase "I reject your reality and substitute it with my own." She once proclaimed that she didn't have to file taxes because she was a widow. When we pointed out that she could get audited, she then doubled down and said that the IRS only audits businesses, not people. I once hurt my hand and asked for some money to go to urgent care, and she told me to just go to the emergency room. It's free. She thinks passive aggressiveness is a term I made up. She also once ate almost an entire block of candy over a period of a week that had a thin layer of styrofoam on it, before realizing the styrofoam wasn't part of the candy. Cancer. I was at dinner with my parents when my mum started feeling really unwell. We took her to the emergency room for chest pains and she was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. The physician was asking my mum her family medical history and if anyone had diabetes in her family. My dad, a little drunk, asked if his family history would affect her. They're obviously not blood related. Although, Alabama, you never know. The physician just looked at him for a few seconds and then said, "No."